The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from West Virginia.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to the distinguished ranking member of the Subcommittee on Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation, Mr. Garamendi of California.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Rahall, thank you for yielding time. I rise in strong support of H.R. 5769, the Howard Coble Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation Act. As explained by previous speakers, this bill is bipartisan, bicameral, and is non-controversial. And it does reauthorize the United States Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Reserve and the Federal Maritime Commission. The legislation includes many important provisions that were contained in H.R. 4005, the Coast Guard authorization legislation that was passed and reported by voice vote from the committee, as well as overwhelming support here on the floor in April 1st of this year. Maintaining a safe, reliable, and efficient maritime commerce that enables our foreign and domestic trade to fuel the U.S. economy remains as important today as it was in 1790 when former Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton established the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service, the predecessor to the United States Coast Guard. This new legislation will provide our Coast Guard with the resources and policy tools they need to meet the challenges presented by an ever-evolving economy and security demands of our nation. First, let me explain. A sincere gratitude to my colleague, Duncan Hunter, the chair of the subcommittee, for the work that he and his extraordinary staff has done in putting together this bill and working together. I think we've accomplished something useful. Mr. Rahall, your leadership on our side was exemplary. You gave us the resources, the time, and the encouragement to get this job done, and that was repeated by Mr. Schuster on the other side. We have a great team. I'm proud to be with that team and part of it. This is a compromise, to be sure, but it's a good one. First and foremost, the bill includes several non-controversial administrative and management directives to better align the Coast Guard missions and need with the long-term capital planning and annual budget request. Additionally, the bill would grant the Coast Guard with greater flexibility and to augment the active duty forces and provide explicit cooperative agreement authority to enhance the Coast Guard's ability to develop beneficial partnerships with other maritime stakeholders. The bill provides new guidance for the Coast Guard as it continues to rebuild its fleet of offshore cutters. I'm particularly pleased this legislation would advance several positive initiatives to reinvigorate the U.S. merchant marine and improve maritime transportation. Most noteworthy, this legislation would advance several positive policy initiatives. Among them, the enforcement of cargo preference laws and regulation, a move that is long overdue. Additionally, the legislation required the Department of Transportation to develop a new maritime strategy and direct the Government Accountability Office to conduct an assessment of how future export trade can be augmented. I welcome the opportunities to chart new courses forward to improve the competitiveness of the U.S. flag fleet on the high seas, to increase the opportunities for short sea shipping, and to expand our commercial shipbuilding base. I'm pleased that this legislation will advance the significant new policies already discussed by Mr. Hunter to finally force the federal government and the Coast Guard especially to take constructive actions to address the implications of the thawing of the Arctic Ocean and the imminent demands for commercial maritime transportation and resource development across that vast region. A particular shout out to Mr. Hunter for leading the charge on this very important effort. In closing, Mr. Speaker, this bill is responsible legislation that would provide budget stability for the Coast Guard, advance sensible policy reforms, and promote our merchant marine. The bill deserves the support of members from both sides. I urge an aye vote. I yield back my remaining time to Mr. Rahall.
The gentleman reserves his time. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this bill